So here we are in part three of Books Are Manny. So now it's been, so a week ago today we met, and
Right.
we met again on Wednesday, and now it's been 5 days. Somebody do the math from
Yeah.
since Wednesday. And I
Okay.
understand there's been an evolution of Manny. Tell us.
So to add to our previous meeting, over the weekend, I was realizing if that one thing, the literacy, the ADHD, the story that I told myself, and then I'm realizing that was a story, and you helped me realize that. And whenever now that I'm reading, I'm astonished that I don't have that same story playing in my head, and I'm focusing on me, myself, and viewing the words in the book, and the whole, even being able to see the words and focus. If that's a story, over the weekend I was thinking, I wonder what else are stories. And
Wow.
just by doing that alone, I've started feeling much more confident, about certain things, letting certain things go. I was already in the process of, kind of just kicking a lot of insecurities away, but they were still there. But now that I kind of have that same feel to the literacy aspect. And then now these other things, it's like a domino effect, you know, like not just that one. Now I have these other things that I feel like if I keep focusing in the positive way, I can start mixing more and more. And I feel a lot more free than I did a couple of weeks ago. I feel more ambitious. I feel more energetic. I can't tell you how much I got done over the weekend physically, more than I have in a long time. For whatever reason, whether it's you know just going through a phase in my life. I felt like I've been treading through mud for a long time, just my anxiety, my dread, everything, and that started subsiding. But then I still had that same dread for reading, I felt like. And so now the dread is less. And then so because the dread is less, my getting out of bed seems a little more, a lot easier,
Right.
I just doing things physically. I like to grow and farm, on the weekends or in the evenings. And I got up and I didn't feel like, "Oh, I'll just wait till later," or my procrastination didn't seem like that anymore. So yeah, it's just been a continuation of from our last video through this weekend. And so I'm just even more excited, with our project, with everything coming about. So I feel so free now compared to a couple of weeks ago because of the questions you asked me.
Reminder to the world, it's been 1 week
Yes,
and you're 50.
yes,
You just celebrated your 50th birthday.
correct. On the third.
Yeah, I did learn through a few different people, but one is John Lenhart, is his name. Through him, and then all the other stuff I was learning, it was like obviously questions. Oh, and Eddie Dean, questions are what gets inside. They can actually make it past the guards, sort of, right? So the question goes in, and you're like, and now you answer the question. So it does change things. I can't remember the name of the part that opens, but nucleus basalis is maybe
Oh,
what
wow.
Eddie called it, but it opens up and the question goes in. But if I told it to you, it's like slam shut, right? But I ask you a
Mhm.
question. And by the way, when you ask questions, they can't be rhetorical. That's just gaslighting, basically. So you have to
Exactly.
really be curious about the answer. So it stems from a genuine curiosity. I wasn't trying to fix you or anything like that. I was just genuinely curious because we had talked about it, and the curiosity is important. So if you find yourself wanting a person to answer a certain way, you're doing it wrong. But anyway, I want to go back to the go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say, I was watching a movie the other day, and there was a detective that said, if you know the right questions to ask, you can find out the answers.
Oh, yeah.
And so that kind of rung out. And then when you asked me, what was it or who was it that said this, that said this was the case? And then
Right.
I thought about it, like, I hate to admit it, I kind of came up with it by myself from things I've heard or my situations, and no one ever argued it until you asked me those questions. And then I was able to see I could argue that story with the
That's
question you asked.
right. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
You, I read a book recently where they they talked to the person who had the most negotiations of all time or something. He had some claim to fame, but it might have been hostage negotiations. It might have been something. But they're like, "How do you do it?" And he's like, "You just ask questions."
Mhm.
Actually, no, I'm sorry. He didn't say that. He asked them questions. They were trying to figure out what the key was to this unlock this blah blah blah. And he goes, "Well, tell me about who do you live with?" And they're like, "Oh, well, my," he's like, and he just started asking them questions. And they're
Mhm.
like, "Okay, well, get back on track. What's the answer to our question?" He goes, "I just showed you. You just told me why you're divorced, and I met you 15 minutes ago." She's
Mhm.
like, "Oh." And she didn't even know it happened to her.
Exactly.
So since we're on here, I want to go back to you're not funny since I saw you. You haven't read my book, but I have a book called Read or Die. And Read or Die, I had a kid, Manny was his name. And he has a prominent role in the book.
Oh, okay.
And then one day he disappears, and he literally, in real life, because the whole book is really real, he just disappears, as kids do. There's a lot of transients, with a kid like that. But I still remember going to the cabinet where I kept his book because he had such infrequent attendance. I remember getting it and seeing the bookmark and taking it out. And so I wrote about it in my book because he was so beautiful to me. And Manny. But the thing is, what you said as an adult that you can articulate is what I figured out after doing this for 30 years is
Mhm.
that the kids' beliefs changed. And my point was everything that you're saying, because if you were told you can't read and then you start to read and then you're like, wait, I'm reading, just like you said, that's one. And after one is two.
Mhm.
And after two is three, but it's one belief.
Yeah.
And when that one belief is destroyed, then who knows what other beliefs you've been falling for is exactly what you said, is exactly why we're here, which is why this first podcast makes the most, I feel like crying. It makes the most perfect podcast because this is the point. And we didn't do this on purpose, world. This was us coming together through Arlen's All Access. I'm going to say that loud and proud because we came together because of that, and that's how this got made. And that's the truth, is that the kids can read. Manny could, but a belief gets put in there that's negative. It soils the reading, and
Yeah.
it just needs to be cleaned up and let go of some of those things. What do you want to say?
You had, I think in one of your videos, you had mentioned recently, I think it was on your website, where the parent had, I guess, not scolded, but kind of gave the child a rough time of reading.
Mhm.
And I think with your question and me hearing that, it brought back a memory of my mom doing that. I hadn't thought about that, but I can see myself at the kitchen table and she's so frustrated with me because I was having a difficult time. And so that kept going. And I think that's what just, as I kept going and going, I think that's just the story that I decided to live with until, but then again, somehow I was able to manage to make it through life and get to where I am
Right.
career wise and the abilities that I have. But I was always stuck on that story.
It's so weird. Well, you were stuck on it. You got it handed to you, and then your mom pounded it a little bit. I mean, I
But
mean,
there
there's
was no real assurance. No one ever asked me the question that
right.
you asked. No
Nobody
one
can find
confronted me
something.
about it other than just kind of, well, read this, it's easier. You know what I mean? That's
Oh,
kind of
wow.
what has happened.
Right.
Instead of working with the problem, they just kind of, dealt with it and then moved me on. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's the, it's the typical. That's why I call myself an evolutionist, is because I took all of this stuff and I was honest about it. And this is as honest as it gets. So if any, when people are like, well, what about, I'm like, okay, I tried whatever you say, I tried. I mean, look at this. I got all the wrinkles to prove it. I tried the whole time. So this is basically 37 years of trying something. That's a long time of trying, you know. It was
You came up
1987.
with book is
What?
after all this time. You said book is, and I think that's where it really clicked.
Oh, right,
Are. But I'm
right,
sorry, I was
right.
thinking book is, but books are. That's the question you asked, and
Yeah.
then started the whole the whole thing.
Man, when I asked that mom the other day and I'm like, books are, and she's like, power. Actually, this is how I'm going to do it to the camera because I keep looking at you, but I'm like, I go, oh, well, okay, fill this sentence in, books are, and she's like, power. And I was like, what? What? Okay. And then it was so clear. It was like the whole sky opened up and said, well, how are you creating that power with him? And she wasn't. And it was just it was nice. We didn't get in a fight. She's just like, okay, how do I do that? I'm like, yes, let's do
That's
that.
awesome. But think about how your approach was just a couple of weeks ago when you were telling me about some of your meetings.
Right, right,
How much of a transition it is by using these terms.
right. And that's what's so crazy is like that's the difference is between I would love to meet somebody who's my age or somewhere who just kept going like this because that's all they've been doing. I just like never gave up because I knew that there was an answer at the end. And it's so crazy that the answer is a question.
Yes.
Books are, and then that leads you down to where they are. It's like, yeah, there's a bunch of books called Questions Are the Answer. I read a little thing that said questions are the answer. I'm like, you know what? I cannot be the first person to think of that. So, but yeah, it's questions are the answer is really true. So we are going to do books are me, Daphne,
Yep.
and Manny D. I love the Manny D part. And
Right.
so this is the conclusion, unless there's something I'm missing from you.
Nope, no, no, that's it.
All right. So
So
people,
much.
if you saw this, you want to talk to us about books are, you have somebody you want us to talk to about books are, this is what we're going to be doing as much as we possibly can. It will be coming to you. So
Awesome.
subscribe, looking for us on school. I'm supposed to do something else. Oh yeah, like.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. There you go.
I don't know if I can do this very well, but I'm supposed to. But anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, everybody.